Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about why most intermediate lifters stall as soon as they become intermediates. And when I say intermediates, I'm talking true intermediates. I'm not talking about my old previous definitions of it, because I still get that with clients who get so hung up in that, and they're like, well, I'm not squatting 315 yet for reps, so I'm still a novice. And it's like, no, 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 that's not how it works. And again, I've discussed in the past why I don't hold people to those strict standards anymore. Even though maybe I should, just so that people won't train like pussies. But that aside, most intermediate lifters stall because as soon as they finish a novice program, they try to go to another minimalist type program that doesn't have enough volume. Right? What is it they do? They go to something like the Texas method, or they'll try to do 5-3-1 with very low amounts of supplemental work. Because again, people get caught up in this idea that if they just lift heavy with the big basic lifts with the correct programming, they'll continue to get bigger and stronger. And the reality is it's not about the programming so much at that point, unless that programming has you do large blocks of volume on those lifts. And realistically, most people can't handle large amounts of volume on the squat and the deadlift. It's not realistic for the majority of lifters. There are people who can. It's not most of you, especially not at that point, unless you have a very serious general physical preparedness or sports background or something that gives you a large amount of conditioning. Women can handle it better than men, by the way. They're more volume resistant as a general rule. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. Women tend to be able to handle higher volumes of even big lifts, recover from it faster between sets than men can. Men tend to be stronger in absolute strength, even pound for pound, than women. And a lot of people don't realize that. In other words, even with similar body weights and heights, men will simply be stronger. So there's your difference in training. So women handle that a little bit better. And that's what all the data and every coach out there knows. Every coach knows this already, who has to deal with both types. But that aside, you're not going to do that. So what ends up happening is that essentially they don't get enough supplemental work in. Okay? Intermediates get caught up in the idea that what worked for them as a novice is going to work for them the rest of their life. And as I've had other trainers and coaches and people discuss in my social media, that's a problem because people get stuck in the dogmatic ideas of the novice lifter, right? They go read something like Starting Strength and follow their philosophies, and Starting Strength is great for the novice lifter. It's who it's intended for. But as they say, they don't train elite strength athletes, right? And most of the people who train under their methods, they get phenomenal results the first year or two, and then they basically stall out. Most of the people even who compete in their strength lifting are not particularly strong, right? Their record holders even sometimes are top 3 in their thing are not very particularly impressive. In other words, they're not really strong. So people get hung up in these ideas of the lower volume training. And I've definitely seen it with my own clients, and I've got even another one now who has stalled pretty badly, who got hung up in kinobody stuff. And no offense to Greg, but most of his rest pause training and stuff that he has a lot of people doing some of his programs, for guys not on gear who don't have good genetics, it's not going to work well. They're going to basically stall and make no progress for a year because they don't develop work capacity. Right, they're focusing just on almost neural efficiency with one heavy set and then drop sets. And again, the training volumes tend to be too low. They don't build work capacity. They don't build muscle tissue. And they stall. That's it. They're done. They're done making progress. The solution is for the novice lifter to start incorporating more accessory work volume. It doesn't mean they need to do more squat, bench, and deadlift volume always. I'm not saying that. But it is time for them to start assessing their weak points and throwing volume in for them. What do I mean? Well, if your hamstrings, glutes, or rectors are a weak link, probably should start doing a lot more good mornings. Your deadlift will go up. And when I say a lot more, I'm talking a minimum of like 6 sets a week. When I talk about these supplemental lifts, I mean throw these in at like 3 sets of 10 plus reps twice a week. Because if you're an intermediate, you're going to be doing a 4-day upper lower, right? And I'm not interested in people's excuses as to why they want to do something else. Okay, if you're an intermediate who's stuck, you have no business making your own training decisions like that. You clearly do not know what you are doing. All right? I take intermediate lifters to advanced lifters doing 4-day upper lowers. So let's go with what we know works. Plenty of other coaches do too. It's not just me, it's hundreds and hundreds of coaches out there. All right? There's no reason for you to deviate from what all the good coaches do. Stop being silly because you heard a push-pull legs was good. Okay? From some physique guys. Just do an upper-lower 4-day. But it's time to start implementing supplemental work, at least 3 sets of 10. If those are a weak link for you, you need to be doing those on your lower body days. All right? If your glutes themselves are a massive weakness and you have really weak glutes, maybe some glute bridges or hip thrusts on both those days. If your back is weak, and again, one reason I don't push tons of chin-ups and pull-ups anymore, I get plenty of guys who are strong at pull-ups and chin-ups who lack overall back development and they're not that strong. If you've done nothing but pull-ups and chin-ups and no rows, you haven't focused on rows, I promise you, you have a weak upper back. I promise you, you have a weak upper back. Unless you're genetically gifted in that area. Probably need to be doing rows. And it's pronounced enough that I have a lot of my guys do some form of row on all 4 days. So we're talking about doing like 12 sets of rows of some type every week. 3 sets of 10 to 12, all 4 of your days. Oh no, that's not upper lower. See, there you are, getting caught up in dogma. Let's say upper back is the exception. Even I do it that way. I just prioritize certain parts of my back a little bit more with how I row on those days, depending on if it's a bench or a squat and deadlift day. All right, what you need to be doing. If your pecs are a weak link, might be time to add in dips or dumbbell chest presses. If your triceps are a weakness, time to add in triceps. Also, this is also a point where you might look at your training and say, do you benefit from the overhead press or not? We push the press a lot for novice lifters, good for building a base. Some guys are going to do better with an incline. Some guys are better taking it out completely and just replacing it with dips and other chest work and just doing a little bit of delt work. Who can handle laterals safely on their shoulders or upright rows or other stuff. You don't necessarily need a big press for your shoulders and upper chest. You could just do more chest work in general. And you could throw in some delt work to cover that ground. Okay? You have options here, guys. That's what I'm saying. You have options. But you're going to need more volume. And I'm talking about a minimum for anything that's even remotely lagging and holding back your big lifts, a minimum of 3 sets twice a week. And let's come over to that point with, again, back work. You all need at least 12 sets. You need at least 12 sets for your backs of rowing. The exception would be those who have really good upper back development who want to do pull-ups or chin-ups. Fine, you could do 6 sets of those every week and get 6 sets of rows, spread them out over your days. Intermediate lifters do not do enough training volume and they have massive weak links and they stall. And they stall because they get caught up in this novice mindset. And I can just squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, and do chin-ups with moderate to low volume. Well, again, if you're very genetically gifted, you'll be okay. If you're willing to continue to bulk and get fat, you'll be okay because the extra food will make you grow no matter what, right? But that's not going to be where you stop bulking at 16% body fat. You're going to just keep bulking. Kind of the similar thing I noticed with Bulgarian training. Most of the guys who don't blast a ton of gear who are successful in Bulgarian do tend to just bulk. And they get pretty fat, and usually over 20% body fat. That's what I ended up doing while I ran it. That's what everyone does who runs it. But back to the point, novice lifters, when they become intermediate, they need more training volume and they need more supplemental lifts. They have to have it, or the vast majority of them will stall. That's it. You're going to make almost no gains over the next year or two if you don't. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.